And I do that, for health reasons, because nobody really knows. And so I have to do that. And I just wish and I hope that our guys can understand that. I hope we can get to these guys, get them to understand really it's, not just for them, but it's for the people around them. And that's the thing that I think hopefully, will get their attention, is that it's not just about them, but the folks around them.
Kimberly, I'll start with you, and really strong comments there because he is immune compromised and obviously what he went through and he's at risk now. How big of a deal are these comments from Rivera?
They're huge, Molly. I don't think enough people are paying enough attention to the COVID situation in the NFL. And what I mean by that is it's almost like how society feels fractured beyond, based on vaccine lines. It's the same in the NFL. Unvaccinated players versus vaccinated. You're seeing in Buffalo, you're seeing the dialogue happening in the public sphere on Twitter between teammates arguing about it. For Ron Rivera, and I sat down with Ron Rivera recently for a feature story, and we talked about the vaccine. And I feel bad for coaches because they have guys, it's not just the bottom of the roster guys, the guys trying to make the roster that potentially might not even make it through camp if they decide to remain unvaccinated. What about the locker room leaders? Young, veteran, old, whatever. What about those guys who are going to, dig their feet and say, you know what, I don't want the vaccine? Because what we're seeing, I covered a lot of games last year that got postponed because of COVID and guys coming down with it and outbreaks. Titans, Ravens, Steelers. It had a serious effect last year. And now that we have a vaccine and players are saying, I do not want it. If you're a head coach like Ron Rivera, a guy whose team made it to the playoffs, a guy who is charged with turning around a franchise, who's trying to win now in this very short window, and the health issues, it's a big problem for coaches because they now are behind the scenes telling guys, listen, if you don't want to get vaccinated and there's a choice between you and somebody else and you're trying to make this roster, we're going to go with the vaccinated guy because we can't. It is a competitive advantage. That's how these coaches see it. And they have a lot of key players around the league who are sort of saying, yeah, it's not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I think we all agree it's a huge deal. And I like the fact this is being flipped now. For so many years, when the team wanted to, or the league wanted to pressure a player into doing something against their self-interest, right? They use the teammates. You're going to let the teammates down. You're going to let the guys in the locker room down, the organization. You're not committed, et cetera, et cetera. Sign on the dotted line, right? And now it's being flipped. And it's actually a very good thing to use the pressure. And when I say peer pressure, I mean your actual working peers, the people the people you work with. That's what this is. That's what the league is. Peer pressure to get it. You're going to leave us high and dry if you don't get it. And the reason we're even in this fix, it's not even about just the last administration and bad information and kind of mocking masks and stuff like that. This predates that. This has been going on for a long time now, this kind of anti-vax nonsense. It's like non-hocus-pocus non-science that convinced enough people that vaccines are dangerous. There's nothing in the scientific literature that says it's just not true. It's just made up. But enough people who should know better playing on the internet and spreading bad information and people susceptible to low-quality information believe that that's the case. And we should be polite and we should be kind, but we also have to be firm about it. Like, I think every state requires measles, mumps, and rubella if you want to send your kid to early daycare, right? And even elementary school. And I believe through high school, you're required, maybe every state but one, maybe, you're required to get vaccinated. You're required to do it if you want to go to school. And I'm all for requirements, and in their absence, this kind of peer pressure and pressure from coaches and organizations to keep everyone healthy. Do you realize we were just in a deadly pandemic, everyone praying for a miracle? We got a miracle. Take this pandemic over. And no, we're still in it because people don't want to take it. My hat's off to Ron Rivera and the NFL and those bringing pressure to bear to get out of this thing.
Yeah, I think it's poignant because of the messenger when you talk about Ron Rivera. And he alluded to he's immune compromised. So for him, it's a different particular situation. than a lot of people. There are varying conversations going on about this vaccine, and we all know it. We all abreast to it. Social media puts everything on blast. The conspiracy theories out there. It has become political. It's become emotional. All of those things. The bottom line is this, right? And a lot of people are not going to like this, what I say. But the vaccine is a decision based on each individual. Now, I'm vaccinated because not only am I vaccinated because I wanted to protect myself, my mother lives with me, and I wanted to get vaccinated because I saw how this ravaged. I'm close to this particular situation. I had an aunt in the hospital for 3 months on the brink of dying from COVID-19. So I have a different experience. There are different households, different conversations going on all across America. And Max, I know you know this, but as far as the vaccine, and this is not to disperse anything you said about the things that are going on with the conversation now, but there is history with African Americans with vaccines that makes apprehension when you start talking about these things and what it's derived from. But to go back to that history and not pay attention to the things that are happening now, there are so many people vaccinated, so many people that are not dealing with the things that come with COVID. It's not about not getting COVID. People are still getting COVID with the vaccine. The point is for you not to be laying up in the hospital on the brink of death. That's the results of the vaccine. That's what the results have shown, period. Now, you can argue about it, make it political, all of that. I'm not that guy. Hey, this is what the data says. This is what doctors and the doctors that I'm in conversation with are saying. The vaccine is working. It's working.
Marcus, real quick.
Go ahead, man.
I just want to mention one thing, because some people get this wrong about, for example, the Tuskegee experiment, right? Like, that's what people are oftentimes referring to when we talk about the history of this country, racism, how that can be tied up in people's attitudes. But just to be clear, that was about not treating the disease, exposing a group of people to a disease and leaving it untreated. That was not about, hey, let's give someone a bad vaccine. That's about not giving the medicine, not giving the vaccine.
Absolutely, Max. And for the sake of time, I didn't go into that. But I'm just talking about the mistrust that became a part of the medicine conversation for African Americans in this country. But to your point, you're absolutely right. But that's the point that I was trying to make. When you start hearing all of the questions about the vaccine and is it safe and is it test dummies being used? No. It's people that are vaccinated that are not getting COVID and not dealing with the symptoms that you would deal with when you're not vaccinated. And to Ron Rivera's point, the entire point, do it for the people around you. Like at the minimum, the people around you are in a better situation if you decide to get vaccinated. I'm just in a position where I'm never willing to tell an adult what to do. You do what you do, but you also have consequences for both. And that is really the conversation that's going on. Myself personally, I chose to get vaccinated not only for myself, but the people around me. That's not going to be everybody's decision. And we can't look at it in the chasm of, well, if you don't do it, you're a terrible person. We need to explain to them why you need to be vaccinated and why things need to transpire as far as you not only looking out for yourself, but taking care of other people.
Yeah, no, you're not a terrible person.
That's an entire conversation for everybody.
You're not a terrible person, but you should be maybe not allowed to come to work or go to school.
Absolutely.
That doesn't make you a terrible person, but you got to live with the consequences of your choices. And the question as a society is,
I don't think the NFLs can mandate that.
Right, well, that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. What are we willing to mandate?
They would like to mandate it, but I don't think they can with the NFLPA. Yes, I've talked about this before. Lost my grandmother to COVID, was in there full PPE. She couldn't breathe, very scary, awful. Got the vaccine on my birthday as soon as I could sign up. And it was also to protect my parents and the other people around me. But I do understand people's hesitancy. I wasn't running to, sign up because I wanted to, but it's really to protect myself and other people. And I've got a small circle of friends on the West Coast right now. 2 of my friends, their whole families have it, dealing with the Delta variant. They're very sick. Babies are sick. They're scared, and they chose not to get the vaccine, and now they regret it. So I'll leave you with that on my personal story. Still to come here on First Take. All the talk this morning is Simone Biles withdrawing from the individual all-around final in Tokyo. We react to that news. Keep it locked.